Hey, what's up? Welcome back. My name's Rob. Today I just want to make a new version of our old our old ReScript video. So we're gonna be building a to-do list in ReScript. And the reason we're redoing it is because there's been a bunch of new stuff come out in ReScript since we did the original, and I wanted to make sure that we're showcasing all the nicest and latest things in ReScript rather than doing like showing old stuff. So we're gonna do that today. Um, this video is geared towards people who are just kind of becoming familiar with ReScript and they're ready to build their first project, but maybe it's helpful to see an example of how it all comes together. So this will all be in ReScript React, so you'll be able to see that as an example. With that said, I won't be like showing every basic little detail in ReScript, but if there's something novel or something that is interesting that ReScript adds to our project, we may stop to talk about it for a moment. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to go to the docs to ReScript, and I'm going to go to Overview and Installation. There's this Create ReScript app, which is great for scaffolding on a project. That's what we're going to use. I like to use Bun. You can use whichever one you like. I'm going to copy this command and paste it into my terminal. I'm going to rename my project to do. Gives you options for templates. We're going to be using Vite, but it also has a next version, a next option rather, and a basic version which doesn't have like React or anything else. It's just like ReScript. Um, next is great if you want like server-side rendering and all. We don't actually care about that for this project. We're just going to use Vite with React and Tailwind. So I'll push enter. We want the latest stuff, so 11.1 for me, 1.3 on this for ReScript core, and that's it. Let's cd into that. And I'm going to go ahead and show you really quickly what this gives us. When you open the source folder, you'll see some ReScript files. If you've done React with JavaScript, TypeScript, you're familiar with this. You'll see app.jsx or tsx. Well, we have app.res and main.res instead of main.js or main.ts. The more important thing I want to show you right now before we get started, or before we go any further anyway, is that we need to get everything started, like with the with our local server. So these are the two commands that matter for that: resdev and dev. Resdev starts your local ReScript compiler. They'll take your ReScript files and turn them into JavaScript so that when you Vite, which is run through dev, can take the JavaScript files and do what it always does, and then give you like a nice local development experience. So let's go ahead and open a new tab here. I have two different panes on my editor or my terminal. The first thing I want to do is run bun res::dev. That will give my ReScript compiler in watch mode, and then bun dev. Oops. And that will start Vite. So let's go back to our browser. And you'll see that we have like this counter app that it's scaffolded out for us, which is great, but we don't really care about that. We're going to nuke most of that stuff here in a moment. Before we go too much further, you'll notice I have these res.mjs files. Those are just the compiled output for ReScript. I actually don't like seeing those unless like I'm troubleshooting something. So I'm going to add them to my gitignore, which in my editor they won't be showed unless like my editor won't show them unless I like explicitly ask it to, which is great for me. Let's clean this up a bit. It's time to start like deleting some boilerplate. I'm not going to delete all of it. Some of it we'll reuse, but a lot of it we are going to get rid of. I think I'm going to keep this H1 and this button. This H1 will say like to-do list, and this button I'm going to use it for our add to-do button. So we can do let's see, add to-do, right? And then the last thing is we need to get rid of this on click, like the guts of this on click function, and we'll replace it with something like this for now. One thing I want to show you really quickly, just in case you didn't know, this console here, console.log, this wasn't available last time we did this video. At least not with the packages we're using. Kind of like a really important part of ReScript now is this ReScript core, and gives us some of like the core functions. It's like kind of like a standard library for ReScript. So if we go to ReScript.json, it gives us this BSC flags and it opens up ReScript core. And so I'm pretty sure what this does is it just opens up the ReScript core module globally. So we can use all its submodules without having to say ReScript core in front of it. So that's why we can just say console.log. Later on, we're going to use a math module and an array module. These are all ReScript core modules, which it makes it a little bit less verbose using that dash open there. And this is kind of how like the newer way to use your standard library. People used to use built more. Now people are kind of using ReScript core more. Um, Again, those are just standard library options. If you don't know what I'm talking about with built, don't worry about it. So the next is the first thing we want to do really is to talk about like our to-do item. Then when it comes to this to-do list, right? So I'm going to add a new module by adding a new file, and it's our to-do module, right? So this has everything to do with our to-dos. So what we want to do first is define a type for to-do. It's going to have an ID for int. It's going to have a done value, which we'll say that's a boolean, and it's going to have a label, which is a string. So this is the type for our records, our to-do records, right? This T is a convention in ReScript. It means that if you have a module, its primary type is whatever T is. This is T for type, not to do, by the way. It is a to-do type, but the convention comes from type. And then another convention is to have a make function in some of your modules. And for us, it kind of works. We want to make a to-do item, so we'll have a make function. This tilde gives us a labeled argument, which we'll use for the string, for a label of type string. It's going to return to us a record of type to do, right, which is type T. So we've specified that here. So ID is going to be math.int.random. This math, again, is part of ReScript core. It has a submodule called int, and that int submodule has a function called random. We want something from 0 to js.int.max. This gives us the maximum integer that's supported for ReScript. The maximum numeric, like maximum number in the integers that's supported for ReScript. ReScript uses 32-bit signed integers. So if we go to here, you'll see this number here for that. JavaScript, of course, uses 64-bit floats. ReScript with the compiler, what it actually does is like it makes it into a 32-bit integer. That's all you really need to know right now. And so that's what that number comes from. Done will start as false for each of these, and then the label is, of course, just the label from our parameter here. So this is all we're going to do with this for now. We may come back in here later. Actually, we will come back, but let's leave this for now. And actually, before we move on from this, I wanted to reiterate again. This is a to-do module. You should think of this as a module. That means if I say to-do dot make, I can do that from anywhere in ReScript, right? I don't have to import it. There's no import syntax here. It's just I want to use the to-do module. You can still make like child modules of these file level modules by saying with the module keyword, and that's what we're about to do in app.res. So this is another way to define a module without having to create a new file. So I'm going to show you that now. Because the first thing we're going to do with this to-do list is define the state and the actions and the reducers, because we're going to use React.useReducer for this, and so we're going to define most of the upfront in the state module. So it'll make more sense as we work through it. So this is, again, it's going to have that type T, which means this is the primary type for state. And our state's going to have two things in it, at least for now. The first is the list of to-dos. That's going to be an array of to-dos, right? Let's actually go ahead and put that here. To-dos array of to-do.t. And again, to-do.t is this. Make sure that we are on the same page. So a list of those. And then the other thing we need is to track the state of an input, right? So the way this is going to work is if I want to add a new to-do, I type into an input, and I click add. That input values, we're going to track its value in state. So I'm going to put that here. This new input value is a type string. And then we're going to set some other, so that's our type, right? We're going to set up a couple more things for our reducer that we're going to need here in a moment. The first is an initial state, which is a record of type T. new input value is an empty string when we start off, and we don't have any to-dos, so it's going to be an empty array. Next is we need to, for our reducer, we need to have a union of all the different actions that we can take. So I'm going to show you that now. We want to be able to add to-dos, delete to-dos. This int, by the way, is going to be the ID of the to-do item. And we're going to come back to that in a moment. We're going to give it a type alias, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. We have toggle done, which again takes an int for the ID, and then input updated. It's going to take a string. So this input updates when you type into the input field. It's going to give us the updated value through the onChange handler. So this int we're reusing here to mean the same thing, which is a to-do ID. We're actually going to just alias that as type to-do ID here back inside of our to-do.res module. So whenever we're in the past where we were going to use an int for our to-do ID, we can just now call it to-do ID. And the benefit to this is that people know what we're talking about without having to hunt for it. Or without having to go and try and interpret it too much. It's obvious inside the code. So you can see that we changed these. Now if someone comes and reads our code, it's like toggle done. Oh, it takes a to-do ID. Great. Optional, of course. If you don't find that useful, don't use it, but I kind of like it. Next, we have to make the reducer function for our React reducer. Nothing special here if you know React. This is just a thing that takes your actions and then transforms your state into a new state based on those actions. We're gonna have a switch on action. This action, by the way, is of type of union actions, right? So we're going to use this switch statement to check these different possibilities, right? If they give us an add, we're going to do a certain thing. If we get delete, we'll do something else, right? So let's implement that now. Whoops. Hang on a second. Sorry. My LSP can generate these for me now. So now you can see that we have this switch statement with all the different actions. Really quick on this switch statement, you might be tempted to think of this like a switch case. And I would say that if you're thinking of it that way, it's a really limited way to think of it. This gives you full-on pattern matching, and it also has exhaustive checks. We won't talk too much about the pattern matching, but with the exhaustive checks, that means that if I comment out this delete case here, it's going to give us a warning here. You forgot to handle a possible case, and that's really useful when you know you might be changing the actions union. Maybe you add a new action or whatever, and you want to make sure that case is covered, especially if it's you're pattern matching on it in multiple places. That's a great way to do it. Okay, cool. So we have this at least scaffolded. We'll come back and implement those different cases there, the different branches of our switch statement. But we'll do that as we go. So let's go ahead and add our React reducer here. We're gonna use our state module. So again, this state is the same thing we defined up on line 1. It's got stuff in here for us for our use reducer. The first argument state.reducer. The second argument is the initial state. And now what we can do is start adding some stuff to our JSX. The first thing is probably to add that input, this input where people add the new to-do item, the new label for the to-do item. So the value of that is going to be the new input value, and then on change. So this onChange handler is going to get the input of the value every time it changes, and then put that into our state, right? So we'll say new value equals, it's going to equal the same. I'll type in a moment. What I'm about to show you just means e.target.current value. It's the same thing. But in ReScript, it's a little bit more verbose, and it's something you'll get used to. But we have this React event module with a submodule form with a function current target, and the current target takes e for the event, and that gives us back a ReScript object, which we can say use bracket notation to get the value out of. It becomes it's not hard to remember after a little while. Now what we can do is dispatch this though, and we can say, well, we want to update, we want input updated with a new value, and this will work. Something else, if you wanted to do it, if you're new to like piping values, you could do something like this. Whoops, let's go ahead and just type this again. You could do something like this if you wanted to. Dispatch, and maybe we'll just leave it this way. That way you can get practice with your, um, whoops, with your piping. But that'll just say like, take this current target value or whatever, put it into the parameter for input updated, which put that into the parameter or dispatch, and that should work fine. If for some reason it doesn't, we'll come back and change it. Cool. So now if we go back to our browser, you'll see we have this input here. If I type into this, it's actually gonna, like, my page is gonna go white. And the reason for that is I have this fails with for this unimplemented to do branch for input updated, right? So let's go ahead and implement this. So it's going to take an object, a new state object, right? So we'll just clone the state and say, new input value is the new value. So now if I come back, this shouldn't crash. It's updating our state. There's no like indication of that inside our UI yet, but it's happening. So let's go ahead and push on. The next thing we're going to do is implement this add case on button click. So let's go down to the button first, and we'll say dispatch add, and let's update that here. So we're actually not going to clone the state in this case because we're going to update both of the state values. So new input value is going to become empty string. What that's going to do is clear out the current input. That way, you don't want to click add to do and then have your same old label up there, right? We'll clear that out. And then we want to add the new to do to the list of to-dos. So we're going to spread the to-dos list. And by the way, this was not a thing in ReScript prior. Like when we made our first to-do list video, you couldn't spread arrays in ReScript. So this is great to have. And then all we're going to do is use that to-do.make function that we made inside of our to-do module. And we're going to say that the label is state.newInput value. And again, I'm going to come over here on this right pane and say, or go to our to-do res so you can see what we're doing. This make function gives us back a new to-do item, right? And that's what this thing does. Okay. Cool. Again, if we come over here to our to-do list, we still won't be able to see anything because it does clear it like we want it to, but we're not seeing the to-do list like mapped out anywhere. So we're gonna do that next. So let's go here. We're gonna say state.todos. We're actually gonna put this into array.map, and this array.map, the array here comes from ReScript core. We're gonna keep this simple. Like we're not gonna get fancy with the CSS here because like the main purpose of this is just to show you like how to build things with ReScript and React. So this is gonna look maybe like almost kind of ugly, but it's okay. So this to do label here, you'll notice we wrapped this in React.string, and you'll see this in other places too, like up here, React.string in here. You can't in ReScript just say something like foo, right? This won't work. You have to actually like tell it it's going to be a string, and that helps like avoid accidental things showing up in your JSX that maybe you don't want. I don't know. I think like null or something like can sometimes show up, or maybe like some unwanted 0 or whatever. You want to avoid that, so it has this reacted string in there. And then in a similar fashion, like this array.map, this gives us back a new ReScript array, but what we really want is this like React array. So we'll pipe this into a React array at the end. This is something you get used to. I wouldn't like fret over it too much. It is kind of weird at first having this like say React string, React array. but it's really not that big of a deal, and it does give some added safety. So the benefit here is that we should now be able to see all the to-do items we made. So here's another one, and you can see how it adds it down here. By the way, you'll notice the inputs disappearing. That's a Tailwind thing. I don't really care right now. Not enough to like fix it, but that might be annoying to you. If you care, you can fix it with your Tailwind stuff. Okay, so now we have that. There's two more actions that I want to implement, which is delete to do and toggle done. So let's go ahead and implement toggle done. Let's say on click. So since we're doing on click, let's go ahead and put a roll equals button in here for accessibility purposes. And then we're going to say on click dispatch toggle done. And this is going to take the to-do ID. So when we click these, it will toggle done in state, but we have to do a couple things first. First, we have to like implement this fails with to do, and then we actually have to change the style to like reflect that so that you know which one is actually changed. So let's toggle down. Let's actually go ahead and change this, or implement it rather. Spread state. And to-dos is state dot to-dos. And the way we're going to do this is just with array.map. So to do, if, let's actually spread this out a little bit. If to do dot ID does not equal ID. So if it's not the ID we're looking for, it's going to return to do. Else spread to do, and we're going to make done the opposite of whatever the current done value is. Oh, come on. There we go. So that will they'll update our state, and then the last part of this is that we need to give some visual indicator so the user knows which is which. And for that, I'm going to show you this, which is our style. And you can use React DOM.style.make. This is a function. And the way this works, I always just go ahead and put this extra empty parentheses in here. That's required for this kind of function. So with this style.make, you can give it any CSS value that you want. So color is the one I care about right now. So we're going to use color. So if to do dot done, then we're going to say green. Otherwise, do something dark like #333. Let's test and see what we have. So A, B. Cool, it works. Actually, instead of green, I'm going to use red to make that easier for you to see in the video. Let's go back. So now you can see that's red. So if it's done, it will be red. If it's not done, then it'll just be black. Awesome. Last thing I want to do is go ahead and make the on delete or handle delete. So we're going to do on double click for delete. Let's say delete. And again, delete's going to take the ID. And for this one, let's go ahead and update this fails with here. We're going to say spread state. To-dos will be state.todos piped into array.filter to do, and then we're going to say I want everything where the to-do item does not equal the ID that we passed, and of course that has to be it. And that should work too. So let's see, if we double click it, it goes away. Let's add it back. C. Let's get rid of B. It goes away. Awesome. So, I mean, this is the gist of it. This isn't like the prettiest to-do list in the world, but you can dress it up however you want. The whole purpose of this was to kind of show you the basics of ReScript React. There's still a ton that we could have covered. We didn't even look at props, for example, but maybe we can look at that in another video. But you know, we looked at modules. We looked at using reducer. We looked at how to use like this switch pattern matching stuff in ReScript in action, like with a real example of it. So I think those are all really good things. If you have any questions, or if you want to see more content like this in the future, just comment and just let me know what you'd like to see, and we can see if maybe I do more of this stuff again. But yeah, that's it. We'll talk to y'all next time.